Alright, Department of the Interior Cost Reduction Consolidations, Bureau of the Reclamation, Central Utah Project, negative 609 million. Budget reduces 1.2 billion to the Bureau of Reclamation, Central Utah Project. With the budget reduced the funding with the program that have nothing to do with the building and maintaining the water infrastructure with the habitat restoration instead of the budget. Focus of the Reclamation, Central Utah Project with a core mission maintaining assets that provide safe, reliable, efficient with the management of water source for the reach of the western United States. Operation National Park System, they have $900 million. National parks of the responsible include a large number of so that are not national park with traditional understood sense. Many of the receive small numbers of managed local visitors that are better characterized managed in state level parks. The budget would continue supporting many national treasures, but there's an urgent need for the streamlined staff to transfer certain properties of state level management to ensure the long health and sustainment with the national park system. National Park System Historic Preservation Fund, negative 158 million. Many historic preservations will project to have a matching fund with the state, local, private source with running historic preservation funding highly duplicated for the project off the local, rather national. Significant budget would continue with the funding of the project with the partnership of the HBCU, which are unique history. National Park Service construction, negative 73 million. Biden administrative of the federal funding construction project that doesn't say with a more than appropriately managed the local level of production, complement with administrative goals, federalism, transferring smaller and lesser of the visited parks to state with tribal governments. At the same time, the budget it allows National Park Service to provide towards large projects with the National Crown Jewel Parks to lead present the regulatory agenda of the Great American Outdoors Act. Funding over the construction would go further than ever before. National Park Service with the National Recreation Preservation, negative 77 million. Many national recreation preservation grants already supported by the state and local private sector with effectively include a large amount of mandatory funding on land and water with conservation funding state-side grants. For these projects are not directly drive to maintain with the national parks and the public lands, which are large backlog maintenance of the more important address of the community recreation initiatives. Bureau of Indian Affairs and Programs support tribal self-governance for the tribal communities, negative 617. Budget program for the core program members of the tribal community with the budget eliminated for the Indian Guaranteed Loan Program of the Tribal Business Development because of the duplicate of several other programs across the federal government with after other loans of small business for the tribal business for the eligible for receive the budget also terminates Indian Land Consolidation Program, which have received the bipartisan criticism and in effect being an effective addition of the budget also to receive the funding of the program directly funding the tribal operations such as roads, housing, social services in order to focus with the priorities for the tribal communities such as law enforcement, Bureau of Indian Affairs, Public and Safety Justice, $170 million, negative $170 million. Budget streamlines tribal law enforcement program to reduce the redundancy with the inefficiency with the other law enforcement agency. The budget will improve the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the law enforcement program to improve the accountability and reform of the service of the tribal communities. The tribal governments can apply for grants. The Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, for law enforcement emergency service. The Bureau of Indian Education Construction, negative $187 million. Bureau of Indian Education Construction account with the have been played with the poor program management, cost overruns, delays in school construction and repairs, reduction in inefficient projections of the account with accompanied with the renewed efforts to improve the program performance. U.S. Geological Survey, Investigation Research, negative $564 million. United States Geological Survey provides scenic information has of the ecosystem, water, energy, and mineral resources with the mapping with the Earth Survey. The budget eliminates program with the provide grants in the university, the duplicate with the federal research program with a focus on the social agendas, climate change instead of achieving the dominance in energy and critical minerals. Bureau of Land Management Conservation Program, negative $180 million. Obama's administration, the Biden administration, be with the Antique Act for the designated with the vast swaths of land and water off limits within development of recreation, gazing, hunting, mining, and etc. with a hamstrung development of valuable energy mineral resource for the budget with the petite productions to undo the excess of the designation of the budget also reduces wildlife aquatic habitat management program to reduce funds with the left wing with the environmental nonprofit to work against the development of energy with the mineral resource to have the other source of funding of the project. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the state and local, the NGO government conservation grants, negative $170 million. Non-essential, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service grant program conservation specialties managed by states and tribes to other nations of the wasting taxpayer with the species to be better maintain local international interest of the dollars of the duplicate with the federal program and USDA with the Department of Commerce, as well as a large amount of the mandatory funding and available for land expanded with water conservation funded. Renewable energy programs negative $80 million. A budget proposal to eliminate the Green New Deal technology elimination consistent with the President's first day of executive action, including Executive Order 14514 unleashing American energy and the Presidential Memorandum pausing onshore, offshore, the winning, leasing, and permanent. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Ecological Service, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Ecological Service, the NOAA, the National Marine Fish Service, the Office of the Protected Resources, the Jointly Responsible Administration of the Endangered Species Act, Marine Mammal Protection Act. The budget consolidated with a two-program, single program within the Department of Interior consists of the President's efforts to improve the performance, reduce the federal bureaucracy as well as the deregulatory agenda at negative $37 million. Your Federal Wildlife Fire Services, the USDA, and the Department of Interior Wildland Fire Management Programs Unified Agency with the Department of Interior. Nothing changed. Federal Wildlife Mitigation Suppression responsibility currently split 5 of the agency, the 2 Department of U.S. Forest Service, the USDA, the BIA, the Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the National Park Service, the Department in the Department of Interior. The dispersed nature of the federal mission created with significant coordination with a cost efficiency resolve the suboptimal form of the budget reform of the federal wildlife land management created with the operational efficiency with the consolidated with the unified with the federal land fire responsibility to the single new wildlife fire services and the Department of Interior would include the transfer of the USDA with the current wildlife fire management responsibility. The new service with the single command with the operation existing wildland firefighting agencies would streamline the federal wildlife suspension response risk mitigation efforts and coordinate with the non-federal partner to combat the wildfire crisis. Department of Agriculture, USDA.